Hey everyone, I'm Hoki Hoshi, and today we're going to be talking about how you can adjust your car's tune depending on the season to maximize its potential all year round. So this was actually a viewer requested video, and I had planned to start off a new series with a different video, but I feel like this is the perfect concept to introduce my new series called Tuning Quickie. I'm starting this series because I get a lot of questions and comments asking me to do more specific videos on more niche areas of tuning in Forza, and although I feel like I've created a good set of overview videos that cover the basics, this series should allow me to do deep dives into the more niche aspects of tuning. So let's start this video off by talking about what seasonal tuning even means. Now, seasons are a new concept to Horizon 4, and they add an interesting aspect to tuning because tuning for the summer might not be optimal in the fall, spring, or winter, and vice versa. If you tune a car for the winter, the road conditions and temperatures are going to be different during the summer. So what we can do is make minor adjustments to our tuning in order to compensate for differences in temperature and road conditions so that we can still enjoy our cars all year round. So I'm going to talk quickly about modifications before I go into tuning, and we'll start with the easy one, which is tires. So if you're already driving a rally car and you have the rally tires equipped, I definitely recommend keeping those on. However, if you're in a road car, the answers become a little bit more difficult. Now, generally, rally tires are always going to grip better in both snow and rain. However, total peak grip on perfect road conditions is significantly reduced overall by switching to the rally tires, so it's definitely a bit of a trade-off. I've found in my own experience that higher-end cars with race tires that are in S1 through X class should keep their race tires in most cases. However, A-class and below cars I've found usually benefit from switching over to a rally tire in inclement weather like rain or snow. The next mod I recommend looking at is a little bit more specific, as it applies only if you're using a turbocharged car, and even more specifically if it's single turbo versus twin turbo. If you look at your power curve in a single turbo car, you'll notice your power coming on really strong right when the turbo kicks in, and it comes on within a very small rev range. This can make it much more difficult to manage throttle when you're struggling already to find grip. So I might recommend switching over to either twin turbo, naturally aspirated, or a supercharger so that you have a more linear and consistent power curve, which makes things easier when it comes to throttle management and finding grip. So that's really all I recommend looking at for your mods. Let's get into the tuning. The first thing we're going to look at is tire pressure because it's probably the most important and it's pretty easy to change. So I'm going to pull up 3 different races here, one in summer, one in spring, and one in winter. One thing I should point out here is that if you plan to use your cars all year round, tune them in the summer or using summer events, and then adjust them for the other seasons. And fall and spring are pretty similar as far as tuning goes, so I'll usually only mention one. Now, if you're looking at the top left of this window, you'll see that it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And if I pull up my tire telemetry, you can see that my temperatures are right around 115 for the front, 119 for the rear, and my pressures are at about 31 in the front and about 28.5 for the rear. You'll see that my temperatures are dropping, and that's because the tire temperature will always fall to whatever the ambient outside temperature is, but it's important to note that you never start a race with cold tires, which is nice. However, the temperature at which your tires start is based on the temperature of the weather outside. So let's switch over to the winter and spring events and see how drastically things change. Again, in the top left, for winter, you can see that my temperature is significantly colder than it was in the summer, and that's going to have a huge effect on where my tire temperature is at the start of this race. This is also going to have a big effect on my tire pressure, as pressures and temperatures are closely linked. You can see here that my front and rear pressures are about 1 psi lower than they would have been in the summer. Switching quickly over to spring, you can see it kind of hits a middle ground. My temperature is about 50 degrees, and my tire temperature is about 90 degrees, kind of right in the middle. And my tire pressure is again slightly lower than summer, but a little bit higher than winter. So what does all of this mean? Well, realistically, finding the right tire pressures and temperatures for the right road conditions is a really difficult puzzle piece to put together. But hopefully I can point you guys in the right direction by offering some advice, and keep in mind that this is not meant for specific rally builds, but more for road going cars that you want to keep drivable during the winter, fall, and spring weeks. So finally, for tire pressure, I recommend increasing it about 1 to 2 psi in the fall and spring seasons, and maybe 3 to 4 or even 5 psi during the winter. This reduces your tire's contact patch with the road, which most people would think is a bad thing in a rally situation, which it generally is, but for on-road and light off-road driving, which is more what we're focusing on, you want a higher pressure to keep warmer tires and bite through the snow and make contact with the pavement. It also helps to increase your car's responsiveness so that it doesn't quite feel like you're driving a boat through the snow. Moving on to alignment, there's a few adjustments you can make here as well. During the rainy or snowy seasons, you can take your front and rear camber down by maybe a notch or two because you're not able to take advantage of higher camber values in poor weather. You can also add a little bit of rear toe in to keep your rear end from sliding out and making it so that your power on oversteer propels you better through the corner. Moving on to suspension, I would only recommend adjusting your stiffness if you're in a rear-wheel drive car that tends to oversteer a lot. In this case, you can tune more for understeer by increasing front suspension stiffness and or decreasing rear suspension stiffness. This will help keep the rear end in check. With all cars, you can raise your suspension's height if you're below maybe 3 or 4 inches, but if you already have 5 or more inches of ground clearance, you're likely okay to keep it where it is. Now, your damping settings shouldn't need to be adjusted much if they're already set properly for the summer, but I would recommend in winter months maybe dropping your bump stiffness by a few points. For aerodynamics, I usually recommend keeping this towards the high end anyway in all situations, but if there's room to move up, aerodynamics can really help keep your car glued to the road during bad weather. Finally, for the differential settings, and this applies to front, all, or rear wheel drive cars, if you are running a lower diff setting, say below 40 or 50%, I recommend bumping it up by 10 to 20%. But if you're already running a higher diff setting between maybe 60 to 70%, I would recommend keeping it where it is or only bumping it up by maybe 5 or 10%. Your car will really feel the effects of a low diff setting in bad weather, so bumping it up a couple notches can help to counteract the loss of power that you would normally get from that low diff setting. So to summarize everything up, when the seasons change, take a look at your tire pressure and make the necessary adjustments. Then head over to alignment and suspension, make the few tweaks I suggested there, see if there's any more aero you can add to the vehicle, and bump up your diff settings just a little bit. This should help make your car feel more consistent throughout the seasons and feel a lot more drivable in bad weather. Alright everyone, that just about wraps it up for my tuning quickie on seasonal tuning. I hope you like the idea for the new series. I've got a lot of videos planned for this one, but it's been too long since I've done a car review, so I've got 1 or maybe 2 of those coming next, and then I have a pretty long form guide that I'm really excited about coming after that, and I'm always working on more for the future, so stick around, plenty more on the way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.